I found a lady that's cracked the code, and I said, "What do you mean, Ray?" She said, "Cracked the code to all this fraudulent voting." And when he sent me to file on Dr. Laura Pressley, I was impressed. PhD. She had a little conflict in Austin running for office. They picked on the wrong person. PhD young lady says, "There's something going wrong here, and I'm going to figure it out," and she has. So I'm going to just turn it over to Dr. Laura Pressley. Thank you for getting here.
Oh my gosh, well, God bless you. Thank you for having me. I apologize with my sincerest heart that I'm late. A lot of stuff happened on the way, and I'm very, very sorry for that. But thank you for being here. This is a wonderful crowd. And like Dr. Collins said, I ran for the city council in Austin, Texas, and caught them corrupting our vote with the electronic voting machines, red-handed. How many in here really trust electronic voting? There you go. Senator Hall, do you see that? Just checking. Thank you for being here. Nobody raised their hand. And I'll tell you what, I have been presenting this case for the last year across Texas, from Midland to Denton to Longview to Galveston and everywhere in between. And I'll tell you what, that's the response from everybody. One or two people maybe in a crowd will raise their hand. People in Texas don't trust electronic voting. And I'll tell you what we were promised 15 years ago when this stuff came into play, the promises weren't being kept, okay? So, yeah, who knew? So, I ran for city council in Austin, and, Austin's a pretty liberal place, just a little bit. And I live in the northeast corner of Austin. It's in the Runberg area. It's one of the most economically challenged and poor districts in our city. Austin had just gone to 10-member districts. It had been an at-large city council governance system for the last 40 years. And we changed that because we were sick and tired of the taxes. Even though there's a lot of liberals and Democrats in Austin, the people were getting priced out. And that is not partisan. Okay, we wanted to stop to that. So we went to this 10-member district, and I was in that group of 10 council people who were running in those 10 districts for the first time in Austin in 40 years. And there's nothing, I've been in Austin, oh my gosh, almost 28 years. And I've been present in my neighborhood, I've worked in semiconductors, I'm a little bit educated, I've had a couple of jobs, in the semiconductor industry. I've got patents and papers and all this stuff. And the Democrats moved in my district 2 weeks before the end of the deadline where they could move somebody in, a 24-year-old guy who's a Democrat, had lived in Austin only a couple of years, and only had had one job before, which was a lobbyist for the Workers' Defense Fund, which is an immigration bill. So they moved him in, and nothing they could do to get this kid to win. Absolutely nothing. We were winning. It was an ugly campaign on their side. It was just horrible. And we found out that our little opponent was an atheist. And I'll tell you what, I've been poor, and poor people aren't atheists. We don't do that. And I made sure every voter in my district, 28 square miles with 50 churches in my district, that my opponent was an atheist. We're not going to elect an atheist. Nothing they could do could get this kid to win. We had electioneers at every polling location in my district. We were getting calls, "Laura, you got this." The poll showed me winning. And on election night, somehow he beat me 2-1. It doesn't work that way. I knew that was wrong. I knew I won that election. When you know something in your heart and in your soul, you know it. So my husband and I had a dilemma. Do we step up and be responsible, or do we step back and be a victim to these electronic voting machines? And we decided to step up. Good. And what I'm going to show you, oh bless you. Someone needs to do it. Someone needs to do it.
Was it Cedar Park?
No, Austin. It was northeast Austin, the Runberg area. A lot of crime and prostitution and all kinds of really difficult stuff goes on in our neighborhoods. So anyway, I got up the next morning and scratched my head and said something's simply just wrong. And you know what? I tell you what I've learned is that if you're a good candidate and you're going up against the status quo, you can get to the 1-yard line with a good campaign. What gets you in the end zone is keeping your election from being stolen. That's a realization I did not have before this, and that's the message we've been going around the state talking about. So what I'm going to show you, we're going to back up a little bit. How many people worked on campaigns in here? Ooh, everybody. We worry about block walking and phone banking and kissing babies. We should worry about keeping the elections from being stolen.
Amen.
Okay? So what I did as a candidate, I never really worried about how the votes were counted. So I went and I read the election code line by line from top to bottom. My training was in engineering and science and math, and engineers, we work off of specs. Well, actually, the legal code, the election code, is a spec for the counties and the state to do what they're supposed to do with elections. There's line by line what they are to do. So I read the election code, and I knew what my rights were, and I knew what the county was supposed to do, Travis County, and they had not done it. So the first thing I want to do is go through the law. What happens? What does the election code say about the laws in Texas about how we count votes with electronic machines? Because it's very particular about the rules that they put in place. And then we're going to go through the evidence of our case. And then we're going to show you how it's going on all over the state of Texas, which I did not realize was happening when I started down this path of this lawsuit, of suing, because the election results were wrong. So we're going to go through those three things: the laws, the evidence, and how it's affecting around the state. And if you would, if we could just put the questions at the end and just hold on to your questions and I'll get to them. Okay, the first thing, in Travis County, this is the electronic voting machines we use, Part InterCivic. You use this little wheel and you go through the ballot and you pick your candidates. You ever wonder what happens to your vote on an electronic voting machine? What happens after you cast that vote? And this is the key. All of those votes electronically go onto what's called a memory card. This equipment is 15 years old, and those memory cards look like a credit card. Old school, 128 meg memory. Old 15-year Windows 2000 software. Okay? Those votes, yeah, you're shaking your head. You got it. Those votes go onto this memory card, but where do the memory cards go? Well, guess what? They all converge to one location at the county, the central county computer, one computer. If you're going to steal an election, do you want to worry about being at all those precincts, dealing with all those election judges? No, no, no. All you have to do is be at that main computer. Well, isn't that efficient? Imagine if you're Houston, Harris County, 1,000 precincts. You don't want to worry about those 2,000 judges and those thousands of cards. All you have to do is beat that main computer. And that's where we found out it was happening. And I'll show you that. Okay. Let's talk about the law. In Texas, we have the best election laws in the country. I've read a lot of laws across the different states. And in Chapter 52 of the Election Code is fabulous. It says the vote in an election in Texas is by official ballot. Who knew? You can't vote on any old piece of paper in Texas. It has to be an official ballot. And you know what? We actually define what an official ballot is. The first thing is it has to have a serial number. And the Constitution of the state and the election code says, you know what? You got to have a serial number, sequential number, so you can track those ballots. So you know there's no fraud. And the sequential serial number constitutional requirement came in the 1800s. Fraud's been going on a long time. Okay, so we tried to put some band-aids around this thing. You also have to have the name and date of the election on the ballot. Seems pretty simple. You have to have voting squares. You see the square to the left of everybody's name? That's required by law. You have to do that. When we saw these results of 2-1, which blew me away, I couldn't believe it, and I don't believe it, we said, let's do a recount. There's just a problem. We can fix this easy. Let's do a recount. Well, there's two kinds of ballots with electronic voting. There's electronic ballots, and there's some paper ballots that were mail-in. You know, the people in here, do y'all do absentee voting, paper ballots? Yep. Yeah, okay. So there's those two. And we said, let's do a pardon?
So, this county actually stays on octopus skin, not go to DRE.
Yes, yes, yes. Pardon?
It's different to what was described.
Yes, but this is still goes on. Yes. But y'all still have absentee, right? Absentee ballots? Correct. So the absentee ballot